Matthew Holt, THCB Quick Bite here. This is Sean Bell. He is head of new ventures at Spring Health, which is one of the larger mental and behavioral health companies, started with telehealth. New Ventures is not a venture capitalist. It means he's doing new stuff. We'll talk about the new stuff, but before we get there, April Kerr's the CEO, started this a few years back, but not that long ago. I don't know when you came on board. Tell us a bit about, from the beginning, what does Spring Health do?
Yeah, so Spring Health was founded by April Kerr and Adam Checkroot about 8 years ago. Spun out of Yale with a focus on using machine learning and computational psychiatry as a way to match people to get them to the best kind of care that they could find. And so what became of that was the development of a provider network that is on a technology platform that allows the provider network and the needs of the members to be matched very rapidly. So we're able to get people into care quickly. As we've grown the company now, there's about 15 million people on platform. While the number of people accessing the platform has grown exponentially, the time to first appointment has gone down materially. Average time to appointment now for therapy or medication management is 1.7 days from the moment you click send and get engaged in the program. We work with mostly large self-insured employers and large health insurers, and the company just closed its Series E round, was valued at $3.3 billion, which was representative of a lot of the growth that the company has seen in the space.
We may talk about that later.
Yeah.
We'll get that. But let's go back to that. So, but you're a pretty all-encompassing system because it's your therapists, your provider. You employ the provider. They're employed or 1099s?
We use a mix, but we have a lot of 1099 folks as a large
they're
percentage.
on your technology
They are
platform.
on our platform.
So they have
That's
their own mental health dedicated EMR that you built internally.
That's correct. Compass is our EMR. Every one of our providers is required to be on it, which is a little unusual in the space. The benefit to that is we have a single platform for members and providers, allowing us to use all different models with different providers to engage, but one plan, one platform, and one outcome that we can measure consistently on provider quality as well as member outcomes.
So the 15 million, is that the number of employees and members who have access to the whole thing?
Correct, covered lives.
And then give me a flavor of how many people, within, because this obviously has changed dramatically since they started it. How many people require and are using mental health services? I've heard like 35% of Americans have got some mental health. What are the numbers that you're seeing?
Yeah, so we're seeing a massive growth and an ongoing crisis in need for mental health care, and this is something that's continued to grow not just within sort of basic outpatient, but when we talk about specialty care needs in a little while, I'll talk about how that's grown as well. But to give you a perspective on scale, within like 2 weeks ago I looked at our data, we did 50,000 appointments that week. So we are seeing a rapid need across the board. We have millions of people accessing out of that 15 million on any given day. We have millions of people creating accounts, signing up, using and scheduling appointments to see a therapist or a medication manager.
And how much of the front end onboarding, triaging stuff is automated diagnosis? I mean, there's obviously PHQ-9s and kind of stuff. Tell me how that bit works. If I am, I'm feeling down or whatever, and I know this is available to me, what happens?
So the entire platform is automated from the beginning. It was built native with machine learning and using components of AI from the day it was built, before it was actually even really being talked about, using a lot of the original work that Adam and April had developed at Yale and then brought out. And so when you start the process, we use a dynamic assessment that very quickly is able to determine, by asking a few questions up front, how to spawn the assessment in different directions. Okay. So for example, if you have a body image issue, it will ask you to fill out the SCOFF assessment for an eating disorder. If you don't have a body image issue, it's not going to ask you to fill that out. We're able to then essentially calibrate people through the process within a few minutes, determine what are the key areas they should work on and what's their relative risk in those areas. And then what the machine learning does is then look at our provider network. We're also gathering information on things like cultural relevance and need and lived experience. 49% of our provider population is BIPOC. So the result is that we use cultural relevance and clinical requirements to create a list of the top 3 different types of providers we would recommend that you would do with the availability that they have in real time. Because since they're on the same platform, we can actually see that. The result of which is you just have to make one click, schedule the appointment, and we have a 96% therapeutic alliance with every person who signs up because of the nature of how the algorithm matches that well. And they stay in care through their process, and we've seen material improvements in any number of clinical assessments, but we also have seen a huge improvement in people's self-assessment of their own stability and their own ability to feel like they've developed life skills and capabilities to be engaged.
That's great. So let's flip on that. So now, presumably, depression, anxiety are the big buckets of most people, but obviously there are a lot of people who have other stuff going on.
Yeah.
You mentioned eating disorders, which I know is super serious. I'm friends with Christina Saffron from Equip, which I guess is now one of your competitors.
Actually, one of our partners.
Even better.
Yeah.
And then also, but there's also serious mental illness, like obviously things like schizophrenia and other addiction. So how does that work? Because traditionally that's the stuff which has gone to people who got lost, literally lost, and then B, there's a lot of inpatient therapy. So how does that actually now work with the new system?
Well, because the way what we've done, because we have this measurement-based care model and the ability to sort of stratify risk accordingly, we have all these dynamic assessments. We're able to have a very, very distinct point of view on who needs care now in order to get when they're at risk before the condition becomes acute. You asked about different conditions. Let me give it a specific example. The third largest condition now showing up on platform is trauma. And so we're seeing a wide range of people coming in who have a wide range of trauma issues. Now, when we look at those, not every one of them needs to be with a trauma specialist. Many of them are dealing with what we would call small t trauma. But now we know what the relative risk is for this, and we can watch their assessments over time to see if there are changes that would predicate an outreach before they actually go acute. But in many cases, we do have people who are dealing with pretty severe trauma in their lives. Rather than just trying to put them into an outpatient care where they may not be getting everything they would need, we're actually able to now match them with a specialty care manager, a case manager, who's actually able to work with them over 12 months, who is specially trained in trauma. And then of our 10,000 providers, we vetted about 2,000 providers in these different subconditions where we know they have actual working experience and frequently are working with people with those needs and backgrounds. We then can get the team, the person with the care navigator and that specialty care provider, and then be able to watch the trend over time with them and see how they're improving. So we take a very specific, one of our success metrics that's actually critical to us isn't just improvements in the clinical outcomes, those are important, but we also look at how fast can we get someone to care, through care. Because when we have a huge supply-demand problem, keeping people in care past the point where we believe they need it any longer, we want to graduate them down to subacute care where that's relevant and necessary. But the whole goal is to risk shift the model from waiting until someone goes acute and has to go to a residential facility or some form of PHP or IOP and shift them down into the right towards areas where more extensive outpatient care and the model itself and the platform can care for them.
So, one last question about the network. Massive provider shortage we hear all about the time. So two things. One is, I get the matching, but how much of what you're doing is, how much are you taking people away from other networks? So I mean, are you compounding the provider shortage by making it easier getting the spring, number one? And number two, how much of this can be shifted to AI? We've seen experiments a lot with people using AI for things like CBT and other therapies. It hasn't really broken through. So give me the sort of policy thing about the likes of Spring and others, making it harder to get access to therapists because you're sucking them all up, number one. And number two, generally, do you think AI is going to have a bigger role in doing the actual therapy?
Yeah, so I'll answer the first question first. So if you look at the biggest challenge in the supply-demand equation is that therapy, for the most part, is still what we would call a cottage industry. There's a lot of independent therapists who are in networks with a wide range of folks. A wide range of plans. If you look at how those plans are, how those portals are designed, actually finding people who are relevant to you as a member, as a patient finding care is incredibly onerous. In most cases, you're given a static list that you're required to start to call down. It doesn't work. By having these providers on platform and working with both the plans, the self-insured plans, as well as the bigger health insurers, we're actually able to then bring those people and actually make their availability more clear.
Are you saying the shortage is actually a structural process thing more than it's a human capital thing?
Well, I think it's twofold. One is we have a structural imbalance on accessing that care in a reasonable and fast way. Two is we also have an imbalance when you're actually not measuring where people are in process and how they're doing, which is still not widely used within the mental health care industry. The result of which is that we keep people in care for a very long period of time when they may need to be in care, but maybe they also need to graduate and try some of these skills on their own. So we have a scenario where we have people waiting at the door to get access, and we have a supply problem both on the longevity of care as well as the access.
Fair enough. And then talk about AI.
So we're actually really bullish on AI for a wide range of opportunities and how we think AI is going to play a role in allowing for example, session prep, in session sort of gathering of notes and understanding, creating
But
opportunities.
what about therapists replacement with
So
AI?
here's where we think from a therapy perspective. We believe at this point, well, and I don't think this is going to change anytime soon. We're hard-coded. We call this therapeutic alliance, but at the end of the day, it's just really chemistry. And what chemistry is that inherent relationship each of us has with one another that's been built over millennia as a way for us to feel a sense of empathy and ability to connect.
This is code for you saying, no, I don't think it's going to happen yet.
Not yet, and I don't actually know if it should happen. Yeah.
That's all. I actually disagree. I think it's going to happen soon, and it's going to be. I think we'll see how it works out. But I think part of it's to do with that shortage issue, and I don't know how it runs over. Right when you get to 50 million people on the platform, you should. It's like Zempic. 50 million people take it. 150 million people possibly could. When you get to those numbers, I don't get to see how we do it anyway.
Totally.
But we can argue about that later.
No,
right.
for sure.
Last thing. You have the new specialty care thing, which is now, I assume, is that just generally available on the network? If I'm now a Spring client, if I'm a big employer, I get that too, and it's just...
Yeah, so every employer, where every one of our employer customers can sign up and bring it in as part of their offering. We have a number of employers we're launching in January on this, and we'll continue to add new folks in as we add new members, new customers into our network, as well as having our existing customers add that in as a specialty offering for their folks.
All right. Right, now let's go back to that funding thing. Let's talk about the company, right?
Yeah.
You guys have done well. You expanded. You raised, I forget how much it was.
It was $100 million, that's right.
Yeah, a big raise relatively recently. I'm on record as saying this. I just throw the background there. So Roy Shermoke from Amwell, but there's a bunch of companies that you can buy on the open market for rather less than your valuation. Many of which have got internally a competitor to you. So if I'm a clever PE person, can I go roll them all up and create for rather less money than it would cost me to buy a Spring or a Headway or whatever? Can I you have competitors now who are trading substantially less on the public market. So A, do you think of those companies as genuine competitors? And B, what's to stop that happening? And does that put a crimp in where you guys are eventually going in terms of your eventual exit and IPO, because you have venture capitalists who like their money back?
Yeah, sure. So I think we have seen and continue to see in the market a place for specialized offerings that's focusing on certain subconditions or particular populations that may need a very specialized model. For example, we think there are some great companies out there working in pediatric care that are doing some really neat stuff. That being said, what we've found increasingly has been a model that, or increasingly been an issue, is this is a business that you have to have really massive scale. You have to get that supply-demand equation to match in order for the company to really move to become financially stable and successful. And there's only been a couple of folks that can do that. And the result of which is we continue to think of ourselves as a platform where we can find the right smaller solutions to bring in network and allow them to solve gaps in care where we're not going to be. But I don't actually worry about some big roll-up of putting together for the main reason for this and this alone. You asked about strategically how we think about this. As you think about your questions on AI and your commentary on where this is going, one of the underlying requirements is consistent longitudinal data that allows you to track outcomes over a long enough period of time with a wide enough range of people to determine how people are actually moving, so you can move from reacting to being predictive. That only happens when you have a very large data set over a longer period of time. Hacking together a bunch of different companies' data sets, trying to put them and normalize the data sets, trying to create longitudinal views of that by members, it's not going to happen anytime soon. And we think that's a key difference in how we're looking at the market and how we've approached it.
All right. So I think the code for that was successful IPO coming up at the price as close to your value. I know you can't tell me that, but I'm hoping that the industry has to regenerate. There's so much great stuff being done by companies like yours, and frankly, the experience of some of the publicly traded companies now is a big freaking roadblock to that happening. And let's hope the roadblock. What do you do? Roadblocks gets busted through by a tank or whatever that.
The analogy was. The analogy is that. That's right.
Okay, I've been talking with Sean Bell. He's head of new ventures at Spring Health. Sean, thanks for your time.